That's going to be hard because you're just starting through, and sometimes it's not always easy to just stop.
Oh, yeah. So.
You're going to get a lot of people.
That's what I told them.
Be overly cautious, right?
I think they got me as well.
Oh, this morning, I thought they got you.
Just learned something.
Hey, Donald, welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
We're live now. Miriam, can you hear us now?
That's cute. Hey.
It's Brand.
I know.
I'm gonna miss you. You need to do something else for us.
All right.
Something I'm secretary to.
What's that?
Do planning commission or something like that. I'm gonna keep you around. I'm gonna work.
You mean I don't have free time now?
No. Work really easy.
We're live
Yes,
already.
we can.
Well, oh, okay. That
Yeah, I knew
picture's
you-
so clear. It's not usually that clear. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for November 4th, 2020. Okay, per the General Assembly's approval of the governor's amendments to the biennial budget, the governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum actually assembled in a single location, and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation of those who are remoting in. The following benchmarks for the meeting this evening have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from state and federal government support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with Code of Virginia. Fifth, the notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Councilmember Miriam Machado, Councilmember Hector Sendejas, Councilmember Hasib Javed, and Vice Mayor Preston Banks. Those participating in person are Councilmember Alana Mensing, Councilmember Donald Shoemaker, and Mayor Jeanette Rischel. Okay, now we move on to approval of the agenda. I believe, unless there are any changes, that we'll be striking 9G and 9H.
Yes.
Is that correct? Are there any other changes, edits to the agenda? Does City Attorney have any? Do you?
Just we have the two closed meeting.
Okay.
I had a question for you.
Yes.
That page 124, it's this at the very end. That 120, it was like this on the website too. 124 and 125, and then you have for the fences, and then there's the ordinance, and then on 130, it seems like it's a repeat.
It is a repeat, but I didn't want to take it down because sometimes messes up my numbering.
Okay.
The first two.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like a different one. It was literally just the repetition of the. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. It's okay if there's too much information there. But
Right, I just wasn't sure if it was like it got substituted for something else that should have been there.
Oh, I see. I see where you're going with that.
was- yeah.
So if there are no other adjustments to the minutes, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We have an agenda. Please join us in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have public comment time. There will actually be 3 opportunities for the public to comment since there are 2 public hearings. But right now, this is general public comment time. Is there anyone signed up? Have we received any emails or phone calls of any type? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, we will move on to the public hearing. The first public hearing is regarding amending city code for fence height. I declare the public hearing open.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. I am Michelle Berry, zoning administrator for the city. We have a very simple but important amendment for you today. It's regarding fences. I'm just going to take a little time. It's fairly simple but worthy of explanation. Currently, the fence height in the city, the maximum fence height is 6 feet. When you're looking at commercial and industrial properties, that is actually not a sufficient height, especially if you're trying to do some type of decent screening. So when we were reviewing current site plans like the waste transfer facility as well as the rezoning for the village at Manassas Park, we saw value in having an increase in the fence regulations for the maximum height. So this amendment does that. It really just focuses on 3 areas for change. So in I-1, we're going to allow a maximum fence height of 10 feet. And then within the PUD and MUD districts, when accompanied by, when as part of the rezoning or a site plan, you can have a fence up to 8 feet. That may be of value if they want to put a nice perimeter fence up for a community. And then finally, to address buffering issues and incompatibility with adjacent uses, we wanted some flexibility for the zoning administrator regarding fence height when residential is next to commercial or industrial uses. So that fence height can be negotiated, but it gives the zoning administrator flexibility to determine a reasonable height for those uses where you would maybe want a little more height if it's an industrial use and the topography might be different on either side. Those are the actual main changes. I just wanted to emphasize that this portion of the section of the zoning ordinance, there's certainly things that remain the same. Any public use, the fence height is exempt from the regulations, and we do have an item about perimeter fencing, so that is exempt. And then perimeter fencing around the public works perimeter building area along Manassas Drive there, so that's exempt from the fence regulations. There is a limit of 3 feet for a fence height when it's at what we call a site distance triangle at the corner, so you can see around those intersections. And then finally, a fence in residential, single family, attached and detached is 4 feet in the front and 6 feet in the rear, so that remains the same. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this amendment as presented on October 14th, 2020. And staff is recommending that the governing body approve this SODA as recommended by the Planning Commission to amend the city code, section 3131, fences and visual obstructions by ordinance as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mickey. Thank you. We'll start with our folks at home. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question about residential fencing. So for the area that do not have a homeowners association, do they request a permit in the city, or how does it work?
I think
For fences?
residential fencing.
There's no building permit required, but there is, a zoning approval is required for fences in residential districts. We have people come in very often to submit those requests. So we do want to know, because sometimes people don't know where their front yard is, especially if it's on a corner lot. So it is a requirement that it's a structure and it requires zoning approval.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I just wanted to comment that all these requests make sense, for the different heights of the fences, depending on where this lot is located. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Hey, good evening. Yeah, I have a question. Can our neighbors, I guess, argue the fact that if the fence does become 10 feet high, that we're obstructing some type of view or light to their property?
Well, I mean, the only real obstruction would be for sightline distance. I'm not really sure I understand your question. I mean, most of the time a fence between property lines shouldn't be an issue with any type of obstruction. I mean, that's really what the fence is for, unless I'm misunderstanding your question.
Well, I'm just want to make sure that our adjoining lots don't say anything regarding the height of the fence. I mean, obviously it's going to be on our property, but if we instruct, say, a 20-foot fence, I mean, they might just argue the fact that it's obstructing some type of view and it's kind of blocking them from sunlight or whatever purpose. All I'm saying is, where's the limit? I guess I guess the 10 feet will be the limit.
The 10 feet, the proposed limit in the I-1 is 10 feet in the industrial zoning districts. We did allow flexibility when it's trying to provide a visual barrier between residential and commercial or industrial uses. The flexibility is meant to, again, try to factor in maybe topography, as well as the height of the building, or maybe they're storing items there that would require a taller height. In discussing this with the city attorney, we thought flexibility was the best option there when it is trying to create a buffer between residential and commercial and industrial uses, which tend to be incompatible. So it is possible that a 12-foot fence would be beneficial there. So that's why that flexibility is provided in this proposed amendment. I don't really see that people would find that to be an obstruction. I mean, I think most, from the residential perspective, they probably would like a visual barrier if they were right next to an industrial property that was storing a lot of commercial vehicles, as well as large construction vehicles, which we do have several of those types of businesses in the park. So again, it was for flexibility, but I don't really foresee any issue with complaints about impeding sunlight. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be that high a fence. Again, that is really for a reasonable height, and I believe that's what the exact text say. So it's not going to be something where we're going to mandate a 20-foot high fence or wall. If that clarifies.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I had a question about, I know that we're focusing on fence height, but should we mention any language in there about the maintenance of the fence to keep it to a certain standard of quality? And secondly, should we mention anything about debris and making sure that there isn't any debris?
Well, those issues are addressed in several different areas in the city code. I do believe that there is some mention about, in the zoning ordinance, about maintaining structures. But as well, the property maintenance code would address any kind of debris related to the property, not just fences. And also, any type of maintenance that also falls under the property maintenance code. So those are addressed under separate issues. Typically, a zoning ordinance doesn't get into those type of issues. It's more about land use and the structures on that particular property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No, thank you. I had my questions answered at the Planning Commission.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
No, I appreciate Councilmember Banks's questions about repair and maintenance. That's really important. I guess one of my concerns was if the fence is tall, let's say 10 feet, would there be issues of safety in terms of public safety? Because police and fire can't see on the other side. Normal in a vehicle, you wouldn't be able to see on the other side. And I'm concerns about illegal activity, that they purposely would put a 10 feet fence up in order to mask illegal behavior or activities that are not permitted by their zoning. Maybe they're not allowed to park big trucks on their lot, let's say, but they do it because they got a big fence and then nobody can see into it. So those were two of my concerns, was kind of the public safety side and also illegal activity that may be going on or inappropriate activity.
Sure. I'd have to defer to the police about the safety aspect. I will say that this ordinance and this proposed amendment does not dictate that it has to be opaque fence. It certainly could be chain link. It's really just addressing the height.
Okay. So it could be chain link. It could be like board on board, kind of like a townhouse. It could be, I don't know, like a cinder block wall, I guess. Yes. Something like that.
And again, it's at the discretion of the applicant who is going through the site plan process for the commercial and industrial properties. And it would be part of rezoning. So that would be looked at as part of that process.
Yeah.
With respect to the safety aspect, again, maybe the police could answer that question. I would say that, again, since it is at the discretion of the applicant, I think the fence height is their security preference of what they would be. Again, these are maximum heights. That doesn't mean they have to make it 10 feet tall. Like, for example, in I-1, it just allows them to go up to 10 feet.
Could you address that question?
I don't believe it's going to be an issue in terms of height.
I'm sorry, could you come to the microphone? That way the folks at home can hear too.
I don't believe it's going to be a security issue for us. Obviously, if they're doing something illegal and it gets reported, we would investigate it. There's other areas in the city where we can't see through the fence. So it'd be hard for us to say, oh yes, this is going to be a problem when there isn't currently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that concern forward. And I had one other question for you. I'm blanking on that, but actually I had another concern kind of along the lines of fences. I know it's not a fence, but I hear complaints frequently, particularly on Manassas Drive, but not exclusively, where people, in place of fences, they've put bushes, hedges, things like that, and they are wildly out of control, much higher than 3 or 4 feet like the fence would be, and then they can't see. It's not a fence, but it's by de facto a fence because they've planted them, in a way where they're kind of like a fence, and it limits the sight lines of people that are especially on the side streets when they're trying to take a turn and they can't see very well because the bushes are limiting the sight line. They either have to pull up quite a bit further than maybe they should, or they're kind of taking a chance because they can't see very far down the road. And I realize that's not technically a fence, but I wanted to bring that concern forward because I hear that complaint sometimes about bushes and trees and things that are in place of fences, and then they grow, so maybe they're short, but then they grow and then they're much taller than maybe they were initially intended to be.
So bushes, as you're describing, are subject to that sight distance triangle.
Okay.
So if they are taller than 3 feet, and that's measured from the center line of the road, which tends to be a lot lower
Okay.
than the adjoining property. So that accounts for that in that triangle, it's really any item or structure or even trees would be subject to that requirement.
Yeah, I've heard that concern brought forward several times to me, and I didn't know actually what the regulation was, and so I'll send them your way.
Please do, and also if landscaping or any kind of vegetation is impeding the public sidewalk, we do have other regulation where we can go, but it's required for them to trim that.
Okay, that's good. I mean, it's safety for our residents, people walking, biking on sidewalks and things like that. I had one more question, and I completely blanked on it, so come back to me.
Okay, well, you're the last one.
Oh,
so,
yeah, I didn't think of that. I guess those were all the questions I had then.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Has any public comment been sent in? No? Okay. In that case, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. This will be voted on later in the meeting under 9F. Okay, next public hearing is regarding amending city code for small purchases. I declare the public hearing open.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This was here really just takes advantage of a change to state code that increased the amount that we could contract for without having to go out for an IF or invitation for bids or a request for proposals. Those processes typically require a lot of staff time and also cost the city money for advertising requirements and can delay projects. The small purchase procedures in the Virginia Public Procurement Act allow us to take advantage of the fact that most of our projects are below a certain threshold. We have to maintain competition to the extent that's practicable, which means typically what we do is we have an idea of what we need and we'll call and ask for quotes. Sometimes we put it actually in a written form, and it's almost as if we are issuing an RFP. We're just mailing it out to companies that are in the area that typically do this kind of work and that we've worked with in the past. And we do try to get competition there. But it had been $100,000. We had taken advantage of that before by increasing our limit to $100,000, and that's for goods and services procurement, other than transportation-related construction projects and professional services that each have different limits that are not changing. The state code allows us to go up to $200,000, and I'd strongly recommend that we do that, and that's what this ordinance does. It basically just increases it to $200,000. So that's my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. We'll start at home. Councilmember Machado? Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions? Okay, is she frozen? Okay. Okay, Councilmember Sendejas, we'll come back to Miriam. Okay.
No question.
Okay.
Our audio is lagging though.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
They're lagging at home.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, it looks like the bandwidth is
I
weak.
wonder
weak
how
on
big of a lag it is. Okay.
Looks like Preston's live. Looks like he's.
Councilmember Machado, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I didn't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, if we, I like the competitive edge that we have, by increasing it, we're going to give away that competitiveness bids from other vendors. If something costs 180, we might get another vendor that might just, price it out at 150. It's just a cost saving for us. I don't know how this would be if we increase it to 200. What would
well, we're still required to get
I'm just worried
competition
about
where we can. So it's not like we're not getting competition. It's just that we don't have to go through the very formal process of issuing an RFP. So for some projects, we do the same. We tell them what we want. Like say for instance, we're doing a remodeling job. Okay, and it's going to cost $150,000, we estimate. If we go out for an RFP for that, it's going to take a significant amount of time and staff time, and then also the advertising requirement. We're probably going to get the same contractors bidding on it as we would going out with a small purchase procedure, and the prices will be the same. It's not like we're going to benefit at all from it. For some things that are going to be rather expensive, it benefits us to issue an RFP statewide. Perhaps then we're going to get some outside contractors that could bring some economies of scale and get it to us cheaper. But for a lot of the projects we do as a small city, we're just not going to get that kind of interest outside the city. So we already know the 4 or 5 local businesses that are going to bid on it anyway. So we're just cutting out that formalized process that delays it and takes a lot of staff time. And we don't have a lot of staff that can work on these IFBs and RFPs.
The other issue too is timing. So if you have funding that needs to be spent within a quick time frame, this helps us do that. So this one specifically is going to help us perhaps present another project next meeting that would allow us to use this method for spending CARES Act money. We're getting very close to the end of the CARES Act money timeline here, so we're coming up with the necessary means to spend that money. So right now, if we had to go through the RFP process, we just wouldn't be able to get some of these projects done.
And just to point out, the governing body still has to approve these. So it's still going to come before the governing body for consideration. So if you don't like it at that point, you can vote against it. It's just that the General Assembly has allowed us this flexibility, which is a significant savings for us. Typically, we ride contracts because it is such a heavy burden for us to issue these RFPs. So we'll try to find a contract out there that will allow us to ride it and take advantage of the economies of scale with another jurisdiction. But if that doesn't exist, then our options are either to issue an RFP or use small procurement. And if we don't have that increased limit, then we're stuck with only one option then.
Also, as a reminder,
Can we still shop?
Yeah, we shop around. It's not like we're just going with one vendor. We're required to use competition where it's practicable. Okay, so we typically go to at least 3, if there are 3 that we are familiar with. So if there's 5, we're going to go to 5. But sometimes there's only a couple that'll do it, and we're not going to get more than those if we issue an RFP either because of the size of the project. So as a small locality, we're kind of at a disadvantage because not a lot of businesses are interested in our small projects.
yeah, and beyond that too, that was one of the points I was going to make about our size. But most cities and counties have procurement officers and purchasing divisions that manage that process. We don't have a single purchasing officer or anything like that to manage that. So it falls on each kind of department or myself to actually go through that extensive process with consultation with our city attorney. So it is a time-consuming process. We just don't have the staff bandwidth to kind of go through that entire process that other cities have full-on divisions to just manage this function. But all in all, I mean, you see our budget record the last few years, we've come under budget consistently. If you look at the projects, that as we price them out, we've been beating those projections consistently when we come back with actual final price quotes for the projects that we've done. So we have been pretty aggressive in trying to get the lowest price.
Staff has been excellent about finding the best price no matter what the product is, the product or the service. Do you have any follow-up, Councilmember Javed?
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yes, I mean, they do a good job finding the best price. No follow-up. I just want to make sure that we still have competitiveness edge when we contract out.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. Definitely.
The ordinance itself, if you look at the ordinance itself, it does require us to use competition still, where it's practical. Okay, so we're not just getting a pass on getting competitive pricing.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. I mean, you have the language, as you mentioned, Dean, you've got the language in there to allow for competitive quotes wherever practical. I mean, I shared the same concern when I first looked at this as Council Member Javed about sole source procurements, but the language is in there, so I have no questions. Thanks.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I just want to clarify real quick,
Sure.
if I could, because the sole source is something slightly different. So although we may end up going with just one vendor that's local, that's interested, and we don't get the necessary competition we'd like, that's not technically a sole source. We do have the ability to procure with sole source, but that requires that there's no other vendor that's practically available or reasonably available in the area that can provide that service or that good. So they're very similar, but I just want to clarify that what we're doing here is changing the small procurement or the small purchase limit. The sole source procurement still exists as the way it has under the Virginia Public Procurement Act.
Dean, you're right. That is a good difference, because I'm thinking about, for instance, with the PD's radios, that they only have one vendor that provides that.
Right, and you'll notice that we have to actually make a written statement to that effect as part of the record. So, whereas for small purchase, all we do is we tell you how we did it. Okay, we reached out, we were asked for 3, 4, 1, however many, and this is the quote we got. We've looked at it. We think this is a competitive amount. We recommend that you agree to this. Whereas sole source, we actually have to have a statement that tells why we think there's only one source available, and that has to be part of the record. So you'll remember when you did the Axon agreement for the purchase of the equipment, we have the second piece tonight, which is the service component. That when you authorized the purchase at the last meeting, you had to pass a resolution first that said sole source, that justified the sole source procurement. So. Yeah, they are slightly different. The practical effect may be the same in some cases, but they're just different ways of procuring.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up, Preston? No?
No follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No question. I have a concern. And, I think that given that 1 cent on the tax rate is $150,000, we're saying that a small purchase is more than 1 cent on the tax rate. And so I think by definition that's not small, but so I'm going to vote against this because I feel like the taxpayers of Manassas Park want more competition and bring down the cost of what we're doing.
Well, I would just point out, though, that it actually costs the taxpayer more money if we don't use small procurement, because now we're spending the money, staff time, and then also the required advertising for the RFP. So if we're just looking at cost savings, it would be the best way to go.
What we pass now has to outlive all of us.
Well, I think it might be misleading to say that this would not be competitive. It would be, because it's required to be competitive. So staff does a very high level of comparison when anything is purchased, and the public really gets their money worth.
Absolutely, but I think 100,000 is enough.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up question? Okay. Is there any public comment? Have we received anything? Okay. No? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Oh, okay, thank you. Public hearing is closed. This will be voted on later in the meeting under 9E. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. There are several adjustments to the consent agenda regarding the motions. The adjusted motions on consent agenda are for item 7B, Mosby Culvert motion now reads that the governing body approve total payment to Shirley Contracting Company, LLC, in the amount of $813,093.71 for completion of Mosby Drive culvert replacement as presented. The item 7C, Axon ratification motion, now reads that the governing body approve the sole source agreement with Axon Enterprise, Inc. to provide equipment and maintenance services for the police department at a total of $1,038,931.26 to be paid over a 10-year period as presented, subject to final city attorney review. So those are the adjusted motions. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of October 6, 2020 and October 20th, 2020. The Mosby Culvert payment approval ratification per the adjusted motion. The Axon agreement ratification from previously approved CARES Act purchase per the adjusted motion. So do we have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And I will abstain just on the minutes of the 20th because I was not present at the meeting of the 20th. Okay. So moving on to we have no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. 9A is CARES Act new message boards.
Calvin, are you there?
Sir, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the governing body, citizens and staff. We have before you a purchase for some CARES Act equipment. We have really used message boards to their fullest extent throughout this COVID crisis to keep the public informed. Some of our message boards are taxed and they're having to come out of service from time to time for repairs. So we're proposing that we actually purchase additional message boards, not only for city use, for public works use, the typical notifications, but also one on behalf of the Parks and Rec Department. The quote before you is for 4 message boards at a price of $14,700 a piece. These have the software that allows us to update them remotely. I believe that is what the jam logic referred to in the quote is. These have no maintenance batteries. We are currently struggling with issues with some of the boards where they have maintenance batteries and have to be filled up and maintained. These no maintenance batteries promise an elevated level of service in the field. The total quote comes out to $58,800. Again, it's for 4 message boards, 3 for public works use, and 1 for Parks and Rec.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. Beginning at home, Councilmember Machado, questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question. Calvin, will these message boards look like the ones that we see on Manassas Drive, or will they look the same?
They will almost look identical. They will look a little updated and newer, but they will probably still be the same orange color, basic same appearance. We try to keep them all uniform because they all work through the same software to be updated from a single computer. But yes, they will look like the ones that are out in the field. We do have some older ones that we rotate in and out when some of them are down. But yes, they'll be the orange message boards, the towable trailer type.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Hey, good evening, Calvin. Does our software, does it have a monthly subscription, these message boards? Or is it just, no?
It's a one-time use, but by buying the boards that are already outfitted with the jam logic, that means they're already compatible with the software that's already loaded onto the desktop. So we don't have to have multiple pieces of desktop software to update different types of boards.
All right, that's perfect then. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No question. I'll abstain from this because of my work on this. But thank you. No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
I have no questions, just a comment. I know we're thinking about putting signs in the new city center area. Perhaps one in the median could kind of have a message board piece of it, like the city of Manassas has going in.
Yeah,
on 28.
we'll explore options, but that was always my vision for kind of the gateway into the city.
Great.
Is to get a monument sign and actually has a digital component to it.
Yeah, okay.
More modern looking than what they have, and with the ability to promote different downtown, our downtown essentially, and city events and other components as well. But we're on the same page on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I like that, by the way.
Yeah,
That was a good
yeah.
question. I like that. My only comment was this for the folks at home is this is CARES money. This is not city taxpayer money. So we would not be able to pay for this if it was just for us. So this is not coming out of local funds.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order in the amount of $58,800 to Traffic Safety Supplies Incorporated for acquisition of 4 Vermax portable message boards with jam logic and no maintenance batteries utilizing CARES Act funding as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Hold
Thank
on.
you.
No, I think that Preston needs to abstain.
Oh,
I didn't hear.
you did abstain. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I didn't hear that. Sorry, Preston. Vice Mayor Banks abstains. Okay. Moving on to 9B, installation of security fence at Public Works.
So Calvin, before you start, I just wanted to orient everybody. This is the police station, the Public Works building, and the access point to the rear garage and other Public Works facilities. And then this is the new subdivision that's site plan or site work, pretty far along. They're just waiting to get a contract, I believe, with the home builder. But this is going to be a 13-home subdivision backing right into our Public Works. So I just wanted to provide that kind of orientation before Calvin presents on the fence discussion.
What street is that over here?
This one here.
No, down.
Sorry.
That's Bayberry is on the Manassas side.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they were building houses back there.
Yeah. It's when was that approved?
Well, that site plan's been around since 2013. and only got a-
It's scale zoning too, it's a zone like a long time ago.
Yeah,
That's right.
rezoned a long time ago.
So it's a historical rezoning, and that's finally being worked on right now. So,
Wow.
It's nothing we really can kind of control.
Okay.
But again, it raises some issues that Public Works is concerned about. Okay, go ahead, Calvin.
Good evening again. Yeah, we have had issues in the past. The garage is back there. That's the silver roof building that you see in our salt shed. We had some issues in the past with people going into the equipment that we keep stored in and around the garage. We actually think that somebody entered into the garage one time and stole some copper from us. But in general, because we sold the city-owned house that is to the sort of northwest in this map, there's now children playing back there that need to have a physical barrier between them and the equipment that we store, and also the addition of these new townhouses is going to open up the possibility that people would be entering into the public works lot as potentially like a shortcut to 7-Eleven or something like that. So we've been talking about this project for some time, but because of the sale of the city house and the construction of these new townhouses, it really increases the risk. So this is the proposal to get the actual chain link fence around the entire yard. Provides an additional layer of security to the police storage yard as well. The fence will eventually tie in through a gate to the corner of the Public Works building, which is in the northwest of the picture right now. So this will add another layer of protection to their facility as well. This was something that we explored years ago when Chief Evans was the police chief. We've had this concern for a long time. So we're finally able to get around to addressing it, and the development of the townhouses and the sale of the city house is really accelerating our timeline on the issue. Again, the quote is for $38,750 from Hercules Fence. We did pursue multiple quotes. Again, we just got over the small procurement discussion. We're still required to pursue 3 quotes for all small procurement items. In this case, we got response from Nova Build Pros, Long Fence, and Hercules. Hercules was the low respondent. So we are requesting that the governing body approve us to perform the work through Hercules Fence in the amount of $38,750. This comes out of multiple line items because the facility is used by streets, garage, and water and sewer crews and stormwater crews.
Thank you, Calvin. Councilmember Machado, questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
For the fence, is it only gonna cover the site where the new residential area is gonna be at, or is it gonna cover on the lower end of the map? Or the vehicles down there?
If you look currently in the very northwest corner of the picture you're looking at, you'll see a silver roof building that is the Public Works building. The fence will actually wrap around behind the garage, parallel to Cabell Drive, border the facility from the new townhouse development, run along the woods in the southwest of your picture, and go in and tie up to the Public Works building. Currently, once it ties into the corner of the Public Works building, it'll essentially be a 360-degree perimeter around what we call the Public Works yard. The only open space will then be on the very steep slope on the northwest corner of the Public Works building.
Do you have a follow-up, Hector? Councilmember Sendejas, do you have a follow-up?
I think he froze.
Okay. Councilmember Javed?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Calvin, you think? I'm thinking of the fence. Okay, you've got the fence. And how high is the fence going to be again?
I believe this is a standard 6-foot chain link. With
8 foot.
Barbed wire at the top.
Yeah, it's 8 foot.
You pressing?
8 foot.
Yeah. Did you say barbed wire at the top? Yeah, it's the standard security fence. It's the 6-foot chain link fence with the barbed wire, jut outs, security fence.
Calvin, the paperwork says 8 feet chain link.
Okay, I had that wrong. I was looking for it in the quote. I couldn't remember if it was 6 or 8.
Okay, so it is 8.
Barbed wire on the top.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other concerns we've got about this residential development being next to the Public Works building? Even if it's noise or anything. I mean, I remember there's a time when we had a bunch of dirt we had to get rid of.
Yeah, I think the only concern with noise would probably be during snow plowing operations. That is our salt shed that you see there with the brown roof. But fortunately, the worst noise from our loading operations is the backup beeper on the skid steer, or the backup beeper on the loader. We use the loader far less because the bucket's so big, it doesn't really work well with the normal size pickups. So it would be the backup beeper in the middle of the night when we're doing snowplow operations 24/7. But you do have the building there to screen the noise. There are some trees. So, the noise will be an issue, potentially the beeper noise from the equipment during plowing operations. But with any luck, that's only 3 or 4 nights a year.
Right.
Okay.
One of my major concern is that this new residential development's coming in as townhouses. And, where are the kids going to play? And you already mentioned kids are playing, in the northern part of the property. I'm thinking kids are curious, they need a place to play. And I'm hoping they don't jump the fence and try to play in the Public Works area, which I think is secure enough, so it should deter them from doing so.
Well, so would the barbed wire, I would hope.
I think so too. I think that will keep them away, because I'm just worried about their safety. And we've got some large Public Works vehicles and so much going on. We don't want anyone injured. That was just my concern, being next to this residential development.
Yeah, without the fence, we've taken a lot of precautions. We used to store an oil drum outside for waste oil from the garage. We've moved that inside. Because one of the bigger risks that people don't think about when you leave a facility like this open to the public is the potential for someone to come onto the site and cause a spill, which we're then responsible for. So, we've changed a lot of our operations and the way we do things because we don't have a security fence. So, it's time to have a security fence so that we're no longer inhibiting our operations, providing that extra level of security for all the equipment that's out there. Making sure the kids can't get on the equipment and play with it, that they can't cause spills, that they can't fall and get hurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Do you have a follow-up?
That's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
I just have a concern. I do agree with everything that Vice Mayor Banks just brought up, but my concern was the barbed wire and the children. I've heard of too many injuries of children climbing a fence, not knowing really what barbed wire can do. So I wasn't quite sold on the fact that we need barbed wire on top of the fence. I would hate to see a small child hurt. A chain link fence is an amazing climbing thing, and they don't really know what the barbed wire is going to do. I support a fence, but I can't support the barbed wire part.
Laszlo,
that we get rid of the barbed wire.
Yes.
Is that consensus?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I feel like if you have that concern, I could support that.
Folks at home, Councilmember Mensing would prefer to get rid of the barbed wire. Are there any objections to that?
No objection.
No. Okay, consensus is
No
to,
objection. No, I agree with that as well.
I'm sorry, Hasib, I didn't quite hear everything you said.
Oh, no, I was saying I have no objection, and I agree with Councilmember Mensing. I mean, it's a safety issue, and it feels like it's kind of standoffish as well.
Okay, yeah, that's,
Thank you.
no barbed wire, okay.
Just an objection. I mean, I was a kid and climbing any height fence, if it's nothing on top to deter me, I'm going to climb that thing. But maybe I was just an unusual kid because I mean, I've done indoor rock climbing. So, I just think you need something extra to deter a curious, active child from climbing that fence and accomplishing a climbing feat and getting on the other side. But I understand the safety and with the barbed wire. I mean, it is really dangerous. It can cut you up. So I would support Councilmember Mensing's amendment.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up question or anything?
No, no.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I just wanna say
Questions, comments?
That was a good point, especially because the fence is going to be 8 feet. I think it's going to deter a lot of people. If it's not 6, it's actually 8. So, actually, the only thing I had to say was I'm glad that we're able to use a Manassas Park business to do this because Hercules Fence is in the Connor Center. So I'm glad we can use a Manassas Park business to do the city's business.
It's been like the trend the last few weeks. If you have noticed, a lot of the Manassas Park businesses are winning a lot of these bids.
I'm glad to see that.
Will that affect the price that is in the
I
motion?
would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, something we'd have to go back and evaluate.
Okay. Should I still state the exact amount that is in the motion, or do you prefer that it be altered first?
I would state that that's our authority, but then minus, for us to remove the barbed wire.
Okay.
From the code.
Okay. Since it says subject to final city attorney review, usually those alterations are taken care of by that one phrase. So I would not have to mention the barbed wire, omitting the barbed. Okay.
What about a not to exceed? Would that work?
Exactly. An amount not to exceed $38,750.
Okay, and my question is, we don't have to mention the omission of the barbed wire since the last phrase takes care of that.
Yeah, so if you look at it says the city manager has the authority to negotiate, approve, and sign. So basically, you're just giving him the authority to go out there and get this agreement in final form.
Okay.
I'm looking at it to make sure it has all the checks. And for an amount not to exceed $38,750 is more than sufficient for what we need here.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate, approve, and sign an agreement with Hercules Fence of Manassas Park in an amount not to exceed $38,750 for the installation of a security fence at the Department of Public Works facility grounds as presented, subject to final city attorney review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
May I ask that we get a report back what the final cost was once the barbed wire has been removed?
Yeah, we could do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 9C, CARES Act purchase of AV updates and upgrades at the PD.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The matter before you this evening is the proposed audiovisual upgrades and updates to the Emergency Operations Center, the community room, and the conference room. Currently, these two locations, the audiovisual technology lacks modern capabilities needed to perform our critical tasks. These challenges are magnified in the current pandemic environment we're facing. The updates will allow the community room and the conference rooms to operate as Emergency Operations Center overflow locations, allowing the staff to follow recommended social distancing guidelines, further increasing the data sharing and communications of critical information to staff during emergencies. The police department would utilize CARE Act funds and small purchase procedures to procure these upgrades.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question. Will this implementation of audiovisual equipment allow the police department to remote in with video teleconferencing broadcast?
I didn't get the question.
Yeah, if it allows us to remote in broadcasts on those screens, I think we would be able to via GoToMeeting.
Yes.
But the more critical piece, so yes, we would be able to remote in and do conferencing like we're doing right now. The more critical piece is in our EOC room during a pandemic when we have an emergency event. And last time we did in the summer, and we all crowded into one room, and there was actually a positive. So we had to isolate almost all the senior officials of the city after that event. What this allows us to do is kind of spread out everyone again, especially this upcoming winter when COVID-19 is supposed to rebound and peak again if we have another major event, a major snowstorm. It allows us to continue to operate at the police station and spread out among multiple rooms and still be connected with each other. So that's a critical piece of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No question, I'll abstain from this vote, thanks.
He said he'll abstain from it, but no questions.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
My only question was, it says see attached quote. We didn't get that in the packet.
I thought it was in there.
Nope. It wasn't on. It wasn't online either. I didn't see it.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Javed, what did you say?
Oh, I'm just saying that it is in the packet. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
It's not in this one right here. I can tell you that.
Okay. Did you look through the electronic packet?
Yeah, I didn't see it there either.
Oh.
I'm looking at it right now. It's online right now.
It is.
Okay.
I have it open right now too.
Yeah, we don't have it in the one that's right here.
Oh, the printed.
Maybe it didn't print out or something.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing it because I remember thinking the same thing when I saw the electronic one was I didn't see the quote.
Okay. Okay.
I actually copied that from online. That's my final.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a question?
Well, I don't know. I didn't see it, so
Okay, well, does someone have a copy they could give to Donald?
I can
so
print
that he
this
could
out
just
real quick.
glance over it?
Yeah. Can I see? Because you have it.
Because it goes
It's all this. Yeah.
Oh, it's all that.
Yeah, it's all that.
Oh, I thought it says please see attached quote. I thought there was something else.
No, this was.
This
it.
is actually
Yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, never mind.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I was confused. I didn't realize that what was in there was actually what was referenced. I thought there should have been something like behind it.
Okay, okay,
that was-
sure.
that
Do
was-
you have a question based on that?
No, I just wanted to make sure I had all the information.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you. The staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate, approve, and sign an agreement with Haley and Associates LLC to upgrade the police department's audiovisual technology for an amount not to exceed $66,000 as presented, subject to final city attorney review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And one abstention?
Yeah.
Okay.
One extension.
Okay, Vice Mayor Banks abstains. Thank you. The motion passes. Okay, 9D, resolution to authorize city manager to approve and sign certain contracts.
On October 6th, you might remember you amended City Code Section 2-75, which increased the limit for the city manager to approve purchase orders and construction change orders from $10,000 to $25,000. At the time, I told you that we had to have a resolution that would match that for his authority for regular contracts for goods and services. The resolution, so he doesn't have the authority for contracts other than purchase orders and change orders in the code. That's been done by resolution. And so in 2009, the governing body adopted a resolution that gave him the authority to enter into contracts for the same amount as he had for the purchase orders and the change orders, which was $10,000. Now that you've increased the statutory limit for the purchase orders and change orders to $25,000, I prepared the resolutions in your packet to also give him that authority up to $25,000. I just want to point out that there are certain requirements for these contracts. So the entire amount can't exceed $25,000. So that means that if it's a 5-year contract and it's $6,000 a year, that's a $30,000 contract. So we couldn't do that. We'd still have to bring that to the governing body. It has to have certain provisions in there. Well, the city manager has to certify that or has to make sure there's money available in the current budget. It has to have either a non-appropriation clause, which is something we put in contracts. So if you, the governing body, don't appropriate funds for any subsequent year, we can terminate the contract without penalty. Or it has to have a provision that we can terminate it for convenience of the city with 30 days notice. The maximum term can't be more than, or it has to be 5 years or less. And let's see, it cannot have it, some of the stuff is just standard. We cannot indemnify. The choice of law has to be Virginia. Any litigation or questions that we need to go to court over have to be done here locally in Prince William County. And then there's some other stuff that just has to do with legal requirements as well. But these are all things that I ordinarily look for in agreements that I bring to you for approval. I also do that for the city manager. So this is the way to ensure that we're not cutting corners in any way by going with this provision. So any questions?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado?
Looks like she's muted. I think she said no questions, but.
Yeah.
Councilmember Machado, did you say no questions?
Question.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker? No questions? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the resolution authorizing city manager to approve and sign minor contracts on behalf of the city, provided the total amount of the minor contract does not exceed $25,000 as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we move to 9E, public hearing having been held earlier in the meeting. Amendment to city code for small purchase. Are there any last minute questions for city manager or for Mickey? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the ordinance to amend City Code 2-175 to increase the total value of small purchase contracts for goods and services to $200,000 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Sorry. So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
One no from Councilmember Shoemaker. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Now, 9F, we are the zoning text, the ZOTA 20-09, public hearing having been held earlier in the meeting. Any last minute questions? Okay.
Well, I wanted to make a comment. I remembered it from earlier, and I apologize.
Sure.
Was that I was concerned? I think something that Councilmember Javed had said was just worrying about having a ton of 10-foot fences, and just would be visually very unappealing. I mean, I know we're supposed to be blocking things from other things, but just to kind of look at it, and you're going to see all these industrial lots with 10, because once one person gets one, then the next person's going to say, well, I want one to match. So it's going to start, you're going to start seeing, so you're going to have like these like big 10-foot fences between industrial uses. That's my only concern, just visually what it's going to look like down there.
Can I just make a comment to that real quick? So that's really between residential and industrial. So those fences are designed not so much to keep people out as to be a visual barrier. So they would be a little bit more decorative, and they would be subject to the zoning administrator's approval. So those are designed as a screening measure instead of the chain link fences that we're talking about for typically are put between industrial properties to keep people out. This is more of a screening measure. So for instance, the project that was recently approved for downtown, some of those residential units are going to be facing Connors Center. Well, we're going to have a board-on-board fence put up over there to kind of screen out some of the activity over there. So I think your point is well taken, but I think these fences are primarily going to be for screening purposes, and are going to be designed to be a little bit more aesthetic. So you're not going to have a bunch of 10-foot chain link fences. It's going to be more like 10 feet when it's dictated by the circumstances between the residential and the non-residential. I don't know if that answered your concern.
Yeah, no, I mean,
address your concerns.
Okay. Okay.
Councilman Shoemaker, I have been with the city for 4 years, and I think I've only had one industrial property come in and want to replace their fence. And again, this is a maximum for 10 feet in the industrial district. That's not what people may opt to do. It just gives them some flexibility if they feel that safety isn't an issue. I mean, the higher the fence, the more it's gonna cost. And I know all of them are 6 feet now. I don't really anticipate or foresee what you said in the comment that everything's going to be 10 feet. I think it's going to be on an as-needed basis when people want to come in. And again, it's at their discretion of how high they want it. It just can't exceed 10 feet.
okay.
Yeah, it's only in industrial districts
Right.
too, so it's not like you're gonna have it in backyards of people.
All right.
Councilmember Javed, did you have a question?
Yeah, is this request coming from the city or is it coming from the developer?
No, this was
I'm just trying to
staff's,
figure out the reasoning for increase.
yeah, this was staff's recommendation to do this amendment because we had the waste transfer facility who wanted to put up that 8-foot fence to buffer and provide a visual barrier for the residential unit that's actually in Prince William County. Initially they proposed a 10-foot fence, and then they proposed an 8-foot fence, or a 6-foot fence, and then we kind of came back up to 8 foot because we thought that was a better height for screening. So actually that's where I got the 10 feet from, thinking that since if they proposed a 10-foot fence, that might be a good maximum for the industrial area, the I-1 zoning district. And then because we wanted flexibility, given the fact that we are seeing the village at Manassas Park where there are those incompatible uses, the new residential to the existing industrial, we did want flexibility there, especially to provide the opaque screening between those uses and a taller fence height. And they're going to put an 8-foot fence there between the railroad yard and the townhouses. And I believe the new fence that they're proposing along the northern property line is also going to be 8 feet, which is a good height, and I think reasonable for providing buffers between those industrial zones.
Did that answer your question, Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, it answered that question, but then it brought up another question.
Sure.
If we put up, let's say, the developer is putting an 8-foot fence on the northern end of the development, the industrial lot next to it can put up a 10-foot fence, it's gonna look odd when we have one fence taller than the other fence.
Yeah, that is a possibility. I do think people try to take advantage of when there's an existing fence there, that they typically, especially in a commercial and industrial zone, they won't do duplicative fences back to back. And you do see that in residential areas, but I haven't seen it. They take advantage of that fence that's there. And I don't think there's a fence there now, especially on the northern portion. So I don't really foresee that, but is it a possibility? Yes, it is.
But I believe the creek divides most of it, right? From the Village Manassas Park from the industrial. So I don't think they would be able to do it in most of the areas to the north. The only area potentially would be the Sherwin-Williams building between that and, so right along City Center, but I don't think they've ever really come to us asking for a fence, so we don't see it as an issue right now.
Right, I mean, I think there was buffers, there's a whole green space buffers area.
That's correct. And you have the creek also on the other side.
Residential, I mean, was it?
I said there's also the creek on the other side of the fence, so that's going to stop someone from putting the fence right up to it.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up?
Well, I think a lot of people, especially the residential units, they like looking at, scenery, landscaping. And it seems like we put these, if we put that fence on that, I agree, the fence for the railroad track, but on the other end,
That's the buffer from the industrial. That's so they're not looking at industrial with that fence. That's the purpose of that fence. There's a lot of industrial work going on during the day, so it's to screen those activities.
It still has to go through site plan, so I can look at that component of the site plan. The governing body, of course, doesn't review the site plans, but the planning commission does. And we didn't really get too much detail on the fence. Remember, that was a change at the last minute. So I think we're, as staff, we're gonna be looking at that to make sure that there aren't any aesthetic concerns for that fencing and the proper location for it.
And now that I remember too, next to the Sherwin-Williams building, they're actually going to use landscaping buffers for a good space before they start the fence. That was one of the changes we wanted them to make, and they agreed to that, so that you don't have the fence line going all the way up to Manassas Drive. So it's pushed back a little bit.
Do you have a follow-up? Councilmember Javed, do you have a follow-up?
No follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's no further questions, staff recommendation is that the governing body approve zoning ordinance text amendment ZOTA number 20-09 as recommended by the Planning Commission to amend City Code 31-31 fences by ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. To our managers report?
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay.
The closed session items are really the big items.
We do have a closed session. Before that, we would like city attorney to read us into closed session, but before that, I just want to mention that Councilmember-elect Yessi Amaya has joined us this evening. If you have not had the opportunity to meet her and speak with her, please do so during the 5-minute break.
I'd like to bring up something before we get into the closed session, if I may. It's kind of a manager-ish report kind of thing, but it was brought to my attention last night as part of our Election Day activities that the registrar and electoral board did not pre-process all of the early voting. And I bring that up because we didn't have results till almost 11 o'clock. In Manassas City, which is 2.5 times our size, they were done at 8:30 because they were pre-processing the mail-in ballots that they were receiving as they were going along through the 45-day period. And it just was concerning to me because, there was a significant delay. And I remember when the registrar came and spoke to us during the budget season, my concern was, we gave her everything she asked for. And I don't know that we even realized to ask what procedure she would be using for the early voting, because this is obviously something brand new for this year. So, I'm concerned that we got left flat-footed relative to our neighbors. And I realize that we, the 7 of us, don't run the elections in the city, but I'm bringing it up as a concern that there needs to be some kind of discussion that if this is now going to be a new norm where possibly a majority of voters will vote early, that they're not pre-processing ballots and they're extending the reporting time for results by hours beyond what our neighbors were. They did a great job. And, that's not a critique of that, but I was just concerned about their internal process relative to our neighbor. And I know that I didn't think to ask because I didn't know better, but it became clear on an election night that there was a significant delay because of the processes that they were doing. And we didn't hear that concern when the registrar and the electoral board presented to us back in April, February, I think initially. So I just wanted to bring that concern forward. I don't know if it's a staffing issue. I don't know if it's a money issue. I don't know if it's what it is, but it was a significant delay. And I put that out for the comment that I'm not sure what we can do to make sure that we don't repeat that in future years.
Okay. Okay. City Attorney?
I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting for 2 matters. First is consultation with the city attorney regarding the terms and scope of the proposed agreement with the Virginia Railway Express for operation, use, and maintenance of the VRE parking garage and the conveyance of real property for the same. The second is consultation with the city attorney regarding the terms and scope of the proposed amendment to the ground lease for parking in support of City Center Phase 1 on portions of Lot 2, Connor Center, Blooms Court, and the Connor House parcel pursuant to paragraph 8 of subsection 2.2/3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We're in closed session, but we'll take a 5-minute